Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday evening. That means it's time for another edition of Circle Track Chatter presented by the Wilton's Realtors. My name is Craig Smolders, joined as always by the legendary Rob Young. Rob, good evening. How are you tonight?
Great, Craig. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how your weekend was, Rob?
Well, I guess it was the last race weekend at Buxton Speedway. Nice warm temperatures. The wind stayed away. We didn't have a lot of cars or a lot of fans out, but on short notice, I was very pleased with it, and I think that the March family, they stepped up and they got a few guys to come out, and we had some fun. You can't knock them for trying. That's for darn sure. My hat's off to them for that. But it was a nice evening, and got to see some racing. I had a chance to see a modified sportsman for the first time up close. A fellow from St. Catharines came down, and so I had a chance also to watch. So the sportsman car was faster than our modifieds, but slower than the late models. Okay. I just watching because they ran the modifieds and a sportsman car together. And it was pretty cool to watch that. I was very impressed with how that was. I didn't expect that it would be quicker than the modifieds, but it was. Anyway, I think it was a good show.
Good. It's always going to be hit and miss when you have a pop-up show. I mean, this time of year, you don't know how the weather's going to be, and credit to them as well, because they held the race. They started the race at 4:00 or whatever. So the sun was still up, and it was a little bit cooler, but the sun was still up, so it wasn't so cold. So that's good. It's like I said, it's going to be hit and miss, but they managed to get one more race in. So a Hallow race, and they had a costume contest. I saw that as well. Saw some video on Facebook, so that's cool. So I guess that's going to bring the second official end to the Buxton Speedway season. Yep. It was a really good season, and they got everything done. A lot of the Buxton drivers, the late model drivers, they were down at Eldora Speedway. I know Dylan Bonner was down there, Van de Winkle was down there, some of the other drivers were down there. So lots of racing going on, but tonight we're not actually going to be talking about any kind of dirt racing. We're going to go asphalt racing tonight. We're going to talk to the driver of the number 60 late model at Delaware Speedway on Friday nights, Ronnie Beauchamp. Opening remarks on Ronnie Beauchamp from you, Rob.
Well, I've known Ron and his dad from back in the 80s, and this is with his dad building engines and stuff like that. And Ron is a standout driver. Has spent 37 years racing. He's a lot of fun to watch, and we'll get to talk to him about that, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's get Ronnie in here, and let's have a little chit chat with him. There we go. Hi, Ron. How are you? Welcome to Circle Track Chatter. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How's everything going? I know you guys had your banquet on Friday night for Delaware Speedway. Did you make it out for that?
Well, we were supposed to go, but a couple of guys, my team, there's 4 of us going, and they were sick. My brother was one of them, so we kind of decided not to go.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always want to make it out to the banquets. Just very quickly, overall 2024 season, were you pretty impressed with how your season was, or what do you think of 2024 season late model division?
Actually, it was a pretty good season. We ended up in the top five, finished fifth in the points, and ran up front most of the time. We had a couple of nights where bad luck would kind of hurt me, but other than that, it was a pretty successful season. I think we're still competitive, so that's one good thing.
Well, it's a tough class of drivers up there at Delaware Speedway on Friday nights. No slouches when you're able to run up front there. So congratulations on that, and well, obviously wish you the best of luck in 2025. But before we get there, we want to talk about everything up to the 2024 season. Rob, before we get going here, do you have any opening questions for Ronnie before we go back in history?
But just to let our audience know a little bit about Ron, he's an exciting driver to watch. He's one of those guys that doesn't lay back. He can get aggressive when he wants to, and if I'll tell you, if you rub him, he'll rub you back, and he's my kind of to watch that. Also, when I do go to Delaware, it's really fun to see. You see a lot of the spotters come walking up before the heat races and the feature, and his dad is his spotter, and those two guys, as I said, they're a dynamic duo. Just watching and knowing that I've known these guys for, well, I'm going to say for like 40 years. Looking back, just seeing his dad walk up there and knowing that the relations, it's just it's really cool, and I can't wait to share all this with the fans that are watching. So yep, I'll turn it back over to you, Craig.
All right. Well, Ronnie, why don't you, if you want to go back in the history books here, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into racing? Did you grow up at the racetrack, or were you just a fan and you just kind of went there? How did you kind of get interested in racing?
Well, when I was just a kid, like 4 or 5 years old, my dad started working with Gary Custer, and he was building the engines for Jack Monahan at the time. So I remember going to Windsor Automotive where they were building them, kind of hung around, and then he'd bring me to the race shop, like Jack Monahan's race shop, and kind of hung around a bit. And then when I got older, I kind of helped on the car a little bit. And then next thing you know, I'm like, wait a sec, I want to race. So basically, it's kind of Jack Monahan and my dad and Gary Custer were the reasons why I got into it.
All right. So 1989 season rolls around and you decide you're ready to take a shot at the racing thing. Why don't you tell us how that came about at Checker Flag Speedway?
Actually, when I was 16, I wanted to start racing, so I went and bought an old Chevelle. Actually, a car where we had it was Bulldog's old car. Remember Wayne Monroe?
Yeah.
And we cut the cage out of it and put it into another Chevelle I had. And anyway, that project never went any further than that year. So then I tried again. When I was 18, I bought another car, and I got enough sponsorship money from a buddy of mine's dad owned Arby's, and we gave us some money. And then Freddie at Fred's Chassis, he put the cage in for us. And then from there on, my dad kind of got involved, and he got the engines going, and away we went.
Did you have any kind of racing experience before you went out there for your rookie season? Like, have you ever kind of been involved with any kind of racing, or what was that experience like when you went out?
Just a little bit of go-kart racing. I did a friend of my dad's, they had a cart, so I went out there and ran a little bit, but not a whole lot really behind the wheel till Checker Flag.
What was that experience like, going out there and just giving it for the first time? And yeah, walk us through that. What was that like for you as a rookie?
Well, I remember in the chute, ready to go out in the track for the first time, and my foot was shaking so bad I couldn't. I had to kind of grab my foot and hold it because I was shaking so bad, trying waiting to go out there. And then once I got out there, it was like, and there was like probably 35 cars would start a feature then, and we weren't allowed mirrors. So basically, I was thrown into the wolves, and away I went.
Rob, do you have any questions about any of that?
Well, I can identify with that. Yeah, I remember my knees shaking too when I first started. But you know that I stopped racing at Checker Flag in '88, and that closed in '91. And that sort of raced with Ron. That they went on to other things. When the track closed, they didn't want to just stop racing, but they went on from there. And I'll talk about that a little later on about all the there was such a lot of talent, Ron included, that left Checker Flag. And I believe that the Checker Flag, it was a little 3/8 mile asphalt track down in Windsor, and I think that it was a perfect track for guys to learn how to race at, because it did produce such great racers. I remember those cars, and Ron was talking about Wayne Monroe and Bulldog. Boy, I raced with those guys, and man, you not only did you learn how to those are individuals, and you didn't want to mess
Oh
them up.
yeah,
You mind your P's and Q's. I remember, yeah, it was Mike Duffy and
that's right.
yeah, and just a bunch of guys. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. I don't want to spoil the whole show here, but I'll turn it back over to you, Craig. But those were some good times.
Yeah.
Sure were.
Do you want to elaborate on that at all, Ron?
Yeah, no, they definitely, when I remember racing with those guys, they were hard-nosed racers. So you learned how to trade paint right away because you had no choice with those boys.
Sure.
So, did you run a full season 1989 at Checker Flag? Like,
Yeah, actually, it was a street stocks division. They called it the Thunder division then, and I won the Rookie of the Year that year. I finished third in the points, won Rookie of the Year, and then I went on to Delaware in the CASCAR after that.
Okay, well, so what brought that on? If you want to go from from the weekly racing series up to CASCAR, because that's quite a jump up. How did that all come about for you?
It was kind of my dad's idea because we were good friends with Alec Pinsnow, and Bobby Merrifield was driving for Alec at the time. They were trying that V6 car program for a bit. And anyway, at the time, like after the first year race, and Alec was selling that car, and then we ended up going out there, and next you know we bought it, and away it went to the CASCAR. We didn't run the V6, so we decided to build a Dodge at that point because my dad built an engine for Monahan, and he went to a Dodge, and there was the event. It was a LeBaron body, and then I said, well, I want a Dodge now too because Jack had one. So next thing I owned a Dodge, and that's how I ended up running the Mopar stuff after that.
Rob, do you have any questions
Basically, because Jack had one, I wanted a Dodge too.
about that? Rob, do you have any questions?
Ronnie and Jack were teammates, and as he said, his dad learned from Gary Custer. Those guys built some awesome engines.
They built some horsepower, those guys.
Sponsored by Windsor Automotive, and those were between Jack Monahan and Bob Merrifield and Don Malott. Those were when you saw those guys at the racetrack, it made you want to be a race car driver. But those were, again, we're going to talk about his CASCAR stuff as we go along here. So we'll carry on. Back to you, Craig.
Yeah, we might as well go right into the CASCAR stuff. Your opening your rookie season. How was that kind of for you? Were you competitive? Was it what you expected, or were you just kind of rolling around at the back, just trying to finish, or how was that for you, Ron?
I remember being it was more competitive than what I thought it was going to be, but we ran pretty good. Like it wasn't. I thought I ran pretty good for we were in a kind of a small budget team at the time. And we definitely weren't back runners, but we kind of ran middle. I was buying my tires from Jack. They were his kind of ones he ran, and I'd buy them from him the next week, and then he'd get new ones, and I'd buy his. So that's kind of how I went the first couple of years. But we were, and then too, like I hooked up with Mike McCall a few years later, so we were getting the cars were getting better, and the geometry and the suspension was getting better, so we started getting faster and started getting closer to the front, I guess you could say.
Rob, do you have any questions about that?
So just so I can kind of get my head wrapped around your late model. This was a CASCAR from the early '90s, but your late model that you drove at Delaware, it's a 102-inch wheelbase car. What like this particular car we're looking at right here? Was that chassis a McCall chassis, or was Fred building some of that stuff at the time, or do you remember?
Actually, the car in the picture right there, that was my the last Fred chassis I had. But before that season started, that's when I started hooking up with Mike, and we brought it there, and he kind of did some like a little bit of suspension changing, some geometry stuff. So he kind of made that car a little bit better. And then after that car there, that's when I started building the McCall chassis. I went to him full time.
Yeah. Well, back, Ron's talking about Fred Faulkner, and Fred was building an awful lot of chassis. Back in going back a little bit back to 1984, we Checker Flag got rid of the super late model division because it was getting really expensive, and they came up with a chassis or a car that was called the Canadian National. And a lot
That's
of guys,
right.
yeah, Fred, a lot of them were like a Camaro front, and not like a full-blown late model that Ron runs right now. That late model you run, it's a tubular clip. Is it a coil-over car all the way around, or is it just conventional coil springs?
The car now is it's a coilover
Okay,
car.
And the difference between that and the super stocks, because they've got the super stocks Delaware's, are they a front clip car?
I think they're doing two things. I know they got one that's called the metric clip or metric car. So I think they do a Camaro clip, and then they do something. I'm not too up on them. I know they're leaf spring cars in the back, but I know there's two kinds of styles you can get for as far as your front end, I believe.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably talk about that a little more. But I was just curious to see, you see them out there and they look a lot the same, but other than the fact that you got wide fives in your late model, and the super stocks run like a 5x5 wheel.
And they also run I think the 602 or 603 crate engine, Chevy crate engine, where the late models are a 604.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Back to you, Craig. Sorry about that.
Nope, that's okay. I enjoy actually sitting here and listening to all the stories. But so at some point, you decide you're going to have your best cast car season ever when you decide to win the Eastern Series championship. That season for you, and how that went for you.
Well, it kind of started like we hooked up with Mopar, say like I think it was around 95, just a little bit, right? A little sponsorship. And then it got 96, and by 98 it was like basically a full blown like Mopar sponsorship. And then we that year I got Burt McCall. He was down in South, working on a cup team, and he got sick the year before that, like, in 97. So in 98, that started the season, we built a new car, like Mike built a new car, and Burt became my crew chief. And then from there on, we just had a fantastic year. The car we had, and with Burt and his knowledge, nothing would go wrong for us. It was awesome. I think we won 3 races that year and in the championship. So it was definitely one of the racing seasons that I'll never forget.
So when you're saying the Eastern Series, what tracks would be classed in the Eastern Series? Where would you guys have run?
Well, so we run all in Ontario and Quebec, and I believe we were starting to hit a couple of tracks in New Brunswick and that. And then they had the Western Series, which was out in Calgary, and the tracks they ran out there. And then they would join to so that we were the Eastern Series and the Western Series, and then they had the National Series, which we had, like, I think it was like 4 or 5 races where we all raced together, the Western and the East. So they kind of had 2 different kind of points things going on that year. And I believe that Whitlock won the National and I won the Eastern that year.
Okay. And were you competitive on the national level? Like,
Yeah. My problem, every time Calgary, I've like had chances to win out there. I always ran good, but some reason I always battled flat tires out there for some reason, and I don't know. Like, I guess because of the way the track was, and I'm not sure, but I always seem to get flat tires out there when I was running up front.
Rob, do you have any questions about that?
Yeah, there's one thing about racing, and when it's not on your side, it's not. But just step back a little bit. He's talking about Burt McCall. Burt started McCall Chassis in Wheatley, Ontario, actually. So he was a little closer. And a lot of the guys around here, a lot of late model drivers had Burt build all of his cars. And his son, Mike, and Rick, and Louie, all 3 of those now are involved in McCall Racing in London. But Burt was he was the guy who started it all. And just to have Burt on your side, Ron, I could just imagine that man has a ton of chassis knowledge, and what a guy to have in your corner.
Oh yeah, he taught me a lot.
Yeah.
You there?
No, I think we might have lost Rob, but I'm here, Ron. So how long did you run in that cast car series?
Well, basically till I think it was 2009. I think the NASCAR bought it. I believe it was, or 2009 or 6. Anyway, and then the NASCAR, like, they came and bought it and became the Canadian Tire Series. and I ran that right till 2014. And then basically then like Mopar, we kind of went separate ways, right? So that's why I kind of went into late model. I took a year off and kind of got into late model racing after that.
Okay.
Plus,
And
I was kind of like all the traveling I did because I used to run in 2000. Bert McCall kind of got me into the Hooters Pro Cup Series down south, like in '99. So in 2000, 2001, we kind of played around a little bit down there too with running the CASCAR stuff with Mopar, and we also ran probably about 6 or 7 races in the Hooters Pro Cup Series down south. So I did a lot of traveling all the years. So it's kind of nice now just doing the late model stuff, going to London and back instead of gone for weekends all the time.
yeah, it's nice to be at home and sleeping in your own bed sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of nice.
Rob, are you there still?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Rob. Do you have anything else for Ronnie? We were
Well,
just
just,
talking a little bit about how CASCAR became NASCAR, and Ronnie was just talking a little bit about running the Hooters Cup down south.
Yeah. Well, I was earlier in the show. I kind of mentioned that there was a lot of really talented racers that came out of the Windsor area from Checker Flag. So just to name a few of these guys, Ronnie was one of them, but there was Mike Herniak, Sean Dupy, Sean Mangin, Duke Sawchuk, Jim Maurice, of course, Jack Monahan, Bob Merrifield, and Don Malott. Even Rick Harrison from Essex used to show up down there Friday night. But there was a lot of talented guys who were real standouts in the CASCAR and on to the Canadian Tire Series that I think more than anywhere else, these guys really, and again, back to the Checker Flag stuff, I think that it was sort of a breeding ground for really good drivers. Ron mentioned there was some pretty tough guys that you had to run against, and you watched your P's and Q's. But before we went too far, I just wanted to mention some of these guys that ran in that division. But anyway, back to you, Craig.
So before we keep going here, number 60, how did the number 60 come about for you?
Well, actually, it started off with number 36 was a number I can Checker Flag, right? I really originally wanted 6, but I couldn't get it. So I thought, okay, there was 36 was available. I'll take 36. So then I went to the CASCAR stuff. I couldn't get 36 now because I was Bob Hume. He raced for the Kenningtons in the Castro car. And then there's only a few numbers left. So then I like, okay, well, 60 had 6 in it because it was kind of a hockey number and my favorite number. So then I ended up with 60 just because there's the only number with 6 in it.
Well, you mentioned it, so we're going to talk about hockey. Did you have a pretty successful hockey career?
Oh, yeah. I still try and play on Tuesday nights. Still trying this basically for exercise now, not for anything else. But yeah, I just played just like double-A travel and stuff when I was younger, and then the beer league, men's leagues, all through the years. So
right on.
Still try and play.
Yeah, you got to play the beer league. I don't know how much playing you do in beer league versus drinking, but I mean, you'd go out there.
There's some pretty good beer leagues as far as like playing, and then the beer comes after. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good leagues.
I've actually done some scorekeeping at some hockey tournaments for the beer league, and they're actually pretty competitive. Once they get they really want to win.
They even drop the gloves sometimes.
I've seen it. Well, they're fighting outside the arena. I've seen them fighting everywhere. Rob,
that's right.
Rob, do you have any questions about that?
Well, like we're shooting the breeze with Ronnie. He looks like he's a relatively young guy, but actually Ronnie's 56 years old. And earlier we were talking about that he worked for Chrysler Canada. He's already put his 30 years in, so he's retired, and he's still able to go racing and he's still playing hockey. Man, I'm pretty envious of this guy. I'm still working at 64, and I don't even know when I can retire. So wow, that's pretty good. You've done a lot.
The only thing is, like I said, we got doing mechanics now, with the repair shop. I'm working harder now than I was at Chrysler's, but just at my own pace now, I guess you could say. I'm my own boss, kind of thing.
That's pretty cool. You can work, but you still get a pension and all that stuff. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of right. It was kind of a good opportunity, so I had to go.
And it sounds like you're working at the same shop that your dad's in right now, so you get to work with your dad as well.
Yeah, we kind of got divided. Like I said, half of like a repair shop, and then the other half he's still building engines, and he has his dyno, and of course where the race car is. So we kind of have it's kind of half performance and race, and the other half is just
Yeah.
make the money.
Yeah. So you're that's the shop you have now is in Oldcastle, or what it's Windsor, but it used to be. We all know it as Oldcastle. But I remember driving by. I used to go to your dad's shop when he was in McGregor there, and
Yep.
driving by the shop that you had down at the where the curve at Walker Road, and seeing that big hauler that said number 60 Ronnie Beauchamp Jr. Man, that was impressive. And when the doors were open, it's lucky I didn't wreck my truck going around that corner looking inside that shop. But like
Go off the road, eh?
6 cars sitting in there. Oh man, I was
Yeah.
really envious.
Crazy because at one time we used to have like 5 cars on a couple of road, like a road race car, a couple oval cars.
Yeah.
It was crazy. You look back and you're like, wow, pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. You were the you were. But and also I remember when I went into your dad's shop in McGregor, he had I'm sure he had every single was it Sunnin equipment that he had.
Yeah.
All of the boring machines and I think there was a line honer there, a vertical and a horizontal one if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, he had all these machines, and it was very impressive. He could do anything in there.
Well, one time he was because of Mopar, he was doing like Whitlock's engines. He did Steckley's for I think a year or two too. Like for a while there, he was doing all the Mopar stuff. So he kind of had to have it all. And they were kind of wanting to make the engine program better because like the harmonics in that Dodge engine were kind of bad. So they really worked on getting the harmonics better in it so we can turn the RPMs up higher and stuff. So they did a lot of research and stuff for that.
Yeah.
So it was all basically was like a push rod angles and stuff like they had to correct and everything. So, but it was a pretty good deal at one time.
Oh yeah, you guys were right. Like as I said, it was a dynamic duo. You with your driving, your dad with the engine. Anyway, I didn't want to get off. Sorry for getting off track there, Craig. Back to you.
No, that's okay. We're actually we've come up to a commercial break, so we're just going to take a quick commercial break for a word from our sponsors, and when we come back with Ronnie Beauchamp, we're going to step away from racing a little bit, and we want to talk about some of your interests outside of racing, what you do during the off season. We'll be right back. Circle Track Chatter, presented by the Wiltons. Circle Track Chatter, sponsored by Elliot and Ashley Wilton of Royal LePage Piper Realty. The fastest realtors around, call the Wiltons, a house sold name. Welcome back to Circle Track Chatter. Craig Smolders and Rob Young talking to Ronnie Beauchamp, the driver of the number 60 late model on Friday nights at Delaware Speedway. As I mentioned before we went to the commercial break, Ronnie, we want to talk a little bit about your interests. I mean, I know you retired from Chrysler. So what kind of stuff, especially during the off season, what kind of stuff do you keep busy at outside of racing?
Well, basically, I hang around the shop a lot. If I'm not working on other cars, I play around the race stuff. But I kind of last few years, my buddies, they've always been good golfers, but I never had time to golf because of racing. So I've kind of taken up golf the last couple of years and been doing that a little bit more and more, which is I find a lot harder than racing because I can't get the knack of that golf game yet. But that and then play hockey and just kind of just been just basically hang out. Not really exciting life, I guess, other than racing.
Well, you do have 3 kids that you told us a little bit about. Are they into some like hockey or baseball or any of this that keep you busy?
Yeah, they're both hockey players, and now they're playing in the men's league now. But one's working at Fords, and the other one's doing an apprenticeship for being a machinist. So they're both kind of set, I guess, on their way. I guess.
Rob, do you have any question about any of that?
And Ron also shared with us that he's been married for 29 years. So next year he's going to have that big 30th wedding anniversary. Does your wife, was she involved with the racing program as well, or did she kind of have her own thing going on?
She would come in to the races, obviously Delaware, and I would sometimes we go like some trips to Montreal and out west and stuff. But other than that, she was just kind of support me and a spectator.
Oh, that's
and take care of my boys when I was gone.
yeah, great to have that. Also, I remember Ron Hall was your drove your hauler for you, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, they were telling me that didn't his wife make all the sandwiches and all that stuff, and had made all.
Yeah,
the meals?
she was like the team cook. So she would I make of course we had to be at the track all day, right? So she'd have breakfast and lunch, and she took care of everyone. It was pretty good. She was a good cook.
Well, with the hauler, most folks when I say hauler, like this was a full NASCAR hauler, like semi truck, the whole 9 yards. I'm sure they had a full kitchen and everything in there. So where you spent, did you live when you guys went out west, or did you motel rooms and stuff, or did you just live out of the hauler?
No, we there was no really like, there was a lounge in it, like you could sleep in it, but we always got motels just because we always traveled like 8 guys or something, so they wanted to be taken care of. Had to take care of your crew, guys. You wouldn't have any.
You got that right. Yeah. Anyway,
all right. So we'll go back to the racing. You mentioned earlier that at some point CASCAR became NASCAR Canadian Tire Series. You continued to race in the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series for a few years, did you not?
Oh yes, right till I think I can't remember what year when they took it over. It was either 2006, 2008, and I raced right till 2014 in NASCAR stuff. So it was it was good. They did a good job with it.
Would you say that when NASCAR took over, was it more competitive than when it was the NASCAR stuff? Or was it kind of the same thing? Because obviously, you'd have a little bit more finances involved and stuff like that. Did you find it a little more competitive, or was it just kind of the same thing, just change the name?
Well, like as I say, the CASCAR series was a really competitive series, and the car count, we always had big car count, right? And then NASCAR, basically the same guys we raced with, but we kind of lost a little bit of car count, I think, because when NASCAR came in, they did some changes to the chassis a bit, to the fuel cell area. So I think we lost car count because of the money, the expense. So some of the smaller teams, I guess, couldn't afford it after maybe a year or two because it was better. Like the cars got better, but the expense of racing went up too with it.
Yeah.
So, but it was definitely a good competitive series. Well, yeah, guys like when you race with Peter Gibbons and Kerry Mix and Donnie Thompson, those guys there, they were tough.
Yeah, for sure. Rob, do you have any questions about that?
I'm just curious. What about the road courses and stuff like that, Ron? Did you like the road courses? Did you run well there, or was that something you looked forward to?
At first, I didn't care for it at first, but then I kind of grew to liking it. And then we started building. What we first started doing, we were taking oval cars and making them into road race cars and all that. Then we got into building actual road race cars. And then I was getting better at it. But then we went down south and we built a road race car from Hess Racing. I don't know if you know Billy Hess. He used to do like road racing stuff for Neiman Chuck and all that stuff. So anyway, we built this road race car down there, and the car, something about it was just awesome under braking and stuff for getting in the corners. And that my road race program got really good. Because the car made me better too, right? And I went to driving schools and all that stuff. Mopar would send me away for training and all that stuff, and I was getting better at it. And then that car there, we almost won Mospar with it. We almost won a few of them. We were on the podium a few times with it. Then we had this bright idea. I ended up getting Chris Couvion, which was, if you remember Len Couvion, his son. He became my crew chief kind of after Burton, and he started building cars. And we ended up building a new road race car on our own. And the car was tight, and I couldn't get into like I used to with that other car. So my chassis program kind of went down a little bit in the road racing. So I struggled at it the last couple of years. I had to do it, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I would definitely like to try it again someday if I could. But not sure if I will be able to again. But it's fun.
I was just curious. This question, I don't think I would enjoy. I'm not a road racing guy. I just like to turn left and go fast, but you had to do it because that was part of the series. Anyway.
Right. Like you said, you learn to kind of it's different kind of racing, right? Than oval track racing. You're more or less like you're racing the track than someone else. It's different. But yeah, I kind of, and it's if you have a bad like hard like bad handling race cars, you hate it. Like I guess anything, right? But I got to enjoy it. It was pretty cool. And this taught like a lot of like fast. We used to race at Gilles Villeneuve track in Montreal, and we were hitting speeds of like 192 mile an hour on the backstretch there. So it was pretty cool. So
Anyway,
you know, and we're feeling the draft and everything too, which was kind of neat. You get head down and you can feel what the draft's all about, right? At those speeds.
Oh, good to know. Anyway, back to you, Craig.
That's all. That's all really good information. I never really thought about the road courses, but that's a big part of the NASCAR Canadian Tire Series stuff. So that was really good. Something that I kind of forgotten about. But at some point, I believe you said 2014 or 2015. I guess you kind of decide you just want to run a weekly series at Delaware and run the late model. You decide to hang up the NASCAR boots and throw on the weekly series boots. Talk about that a little bit, Ronnie.
Well, at first I was kind of like I was kind of looking for like something to meet in the NASCAR stuff in 2015 and then or 14, and then then my dad was kind of hooked up with J.R. Fitzpatrick. He was doing engines for him, and he kind of traveled with them the one year when I didn't like race there, and then they had a late model car, and then it was kind of a deal. My dad goes and works for them, and we kind of got the car from J.R. It was kind of a deal that JR's dad made, my dad made. If he kind of works for him, we can have that late model car. So that's kind of how I kind of got into the late model stuff, because they kind of got the car from Fitzpatrick's, and next thing you know, I started playing with that, and away we went.
Rob, you have any questions about that?
Well, it's, as I said, I really enjoy going to Delaware because I know Ron. It's nice to sit in the grandstands and watch him race, along with Ray Morneau Jr. and Lloyd Rawlings. They call him anyway, he's been racing a long time, but you've been racing just as long. Holy smokes, the Iron Man, that's what they call him. But I think he's the Iron Man too.
Actually, I was in the running for the Ironman, the CASCAR series, and then what happened was one time there was a little kind of a deal going on with CASCAR, like politics, I guess, with Mopar. So I was on the verge of being an Ironman, but we had to back up Mopar. They kind of got a little bit of a conflict with the CASCAR and all that. So Mopar said we're not running the Calgary race. So I kind of had to back them, and we pulled out, went home. And that kind of wrecked my streak of racing, but I had to back my sponsor because there was a little bit of something going on there in the politics part of it. So
yeah,
other than that, but
like I say, when I go to Delaware, it's fun. It's really makes the show more interesting when you know the drivers, and I know Ronnie's driving style, and I know Ray's driving style, and you know what's going to happen. I mean, if somebody rubs Ronnie's fender, that guy's going to get it back again, and I think they know that. He's the bulldog we used to know from back at Checker Flag, in a nice way. You're a very calculated race car driver.
I'm very clean. I like to race clean, pass clean, but if like someone does it, like I'll race you clean all day. Yep. But if you want to race rough, I'll race rough too. I kind of like, how do you want to race, kind of thing, right?
That's right.
So,
all the experience you can. Anyway, back to you, Craig.
So, as is always the case in racing, you're in racing, and then quite often the offspring want to get into racing. Your son got into some go-kart racing. I kind of like to know how that conversation goes when your son comes to you and says, "Hey, Dad, I want to get into doing some racing." Are you sure you know what you're getting into, or you're like, "Okay, let's go, let's build it, let's rock and roll"? How's that response?
Actually, I kind of pushed him to do it.
You started the whole thing, okay?
Yeah, I kind of got it all going because Chris Cruven was my crew chief then, and he kind of got into the go-kart stuff after he left the crew chief's job. So he was already doing the go-kart stuff, and he kind of got me, and I bought a cart. Next thing you know, like told my kid he's getting in it and going.
Did you also try racing the go-kart?
Actually, I did. One night we were there, and it was after the racing was all done, and someone they wanted me to race my kid. So I went on a kind of a grudge match with my kid. Me and him going at it hard, and he kind of got me the one race, and then and I ended up going off the track. I was impressed how fast I couldn't catch him at first because I thought I was kind of cocky. I'll get him. And next thing I'm like, whoa, wait a second here. I got to get moving. And then the second race we had, I kind of got under him and got him. I couldn't let him beat me twice. So
What did you think of that go-kart racing? Is that something you could see doing in the future?
it's faster than what I thought it was going to be. Like you got to run. It's competitive, and it's very impressed with it. Like they do it in the dirt. It's a dirt oval, right?
Yep.
But it's so hard and packed down. I guess like it would be on the dirt tracks, and then we were using like this tire stuff we're putting on for dry track, wet track. We were putting softener on. So it was pretty fun actually. Then he kind of got different interests, and that was it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And is your son helping you out on the car also? Like, is he out there in the shop?
No, neither one of them. They come and watch me, but they don't get involved in it.
Oh, well, you have to work on that too, right?
I tried.
Rob, do you have any questions about that?
Well, you know, Chris Kubion, of course, I raced against his dad, but Chris is the junior Hanley of go-kart racing. I mean, he's the top-notch guy, and I mean that's what he does. He actually it makes part of his living is made selling go-kart stuff, selling go-karts and setting karts up. But man, you want to try and race against that guy, it's not going to happen. He's going to beat you. But
he's hard to beat.
Yeah, I'm looking at that picture and I see your dad in the background and you and your son. Holy smokes, you guys got some hair going on there. Man, look at your dad's older than me, and look at that hair he's got on him. Good Lord.
He's a little grayer now, though.
So racing's good to him. Racing's key. I guess that's the secret. You got to keep racing if you want to keep your hair.
That's all my dad wants to do. He don't want to go. He don't see no need to go on vacation or sit at a resort. He'll go on vacation if there's a racetrack there.
Yeah.
But that's all he wants to do is build race engine, go to racetracks, and that's it. You don't see. He has no purpose for anything else. I try and tell him there's other things to do in life. No, there isn't. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
That's his happy place, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
Even if it's a go-kart track.
He don't care. Yep. As long as he's gone racing.
That's pretty cool. All right, back to you, Craig.
All right, so we'll just talk a little bit about the Friday night racing late model at Delaware Speedway 2022 season. Are you running competitive? Are you running up front? How are some of your seasons going up there?
Well, see that I updated the car a couple of years ago. We because the way the chassis are going and to run up front, I had the car I had from Fitzpatrick's, but they've changed since that car was. But I was a straight rail chassis, but since then they've kind of got even better, right? So me and my brother, we talked to Mike, and he had a car there that he ran with the number 9 car in the CRA series in 2021, I think, to kind of showcase McCall Racing. So the car only had I think maybe 9 races on it total, and we ended up buying this car from a couple of years ago. And this car is really good. It's a really competitive car. So I kind of had to update so I got to catch the Mornos, all those young guys now. So you got to have the good stuff. Those guys run.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Rob, do you have any questions about that?
Ron knows Jake Hooker's my son-in-law. So that
I never knew that.
Yeah, Jake. And Jake's a pretty good dirt racer and not a bad asphalt racer either. And a really good go-kart guy.
He's definitely good. He was well, I seen him run the go-karts when my younger boy was racing. Jake was out there running a bit. So he was a good go-kart racer then.
Yeah. So I was always worried when I would go to Delaware and watch all you guys race together, thinking, okay, I'm friends with the Mornos and Ronnie Beauchamp's my friend and even Lloyd Rawlings. I would be afraid that there was going to be an altercation. So, okay, what am I going to do? But it never happened. So I'm glad. I'm really glad of that. But anyway, Jake's my son-in-law. So,
I like Jake. He's a good kid. He's a hell of a driver.
Oh, he's a really good racer. Yeah. Anyway, not to get off subject, Craig. Sorry about that. Back to you.
That's okay. We're just keep going down along here. 2023 season at Delaware Speedway. How was 2023 for you?
It was kind of both. Like we had fast cars, then we got wrecked pretty bad one time in the backstretch. So then we had to kind of regroup. I missed a few races, and then actually, sometimes a wreck is you hate to do it, but sometimes you can make your car faster, kind of like a wish list. So when the car got wrecked, we went back to McCall's. We changed. They kind of updated the front right side, and then we ended up changing the spindle and a few other things. And the car just turned even better after we did that. So ever since that wreck, we kind of got better.
Well, that's pretty amazing. I see the picture there. You're in Victory Lane with the checker flag, so you're obviously running up still up front.
Yeah, that car.
Talk
Yeah,
about, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Talk
so
about.
that car was flawless that night. It was like in all the years of racing, like that was one of the like what you say best race cars I've had around. How it went through the corners. It was very nice to drive.
Is
But
that one?
these late model cars are finicky. Like there's such a short window to get your setup right, and they're very finicky and they're tough to get. You could be good for a couple weeks, and then one thing's off, a shock or something, and it just throws you right off for the night.
Okay, Rob, do you have any questions or comments about that?
No, that's I mean, dirt racing is pretty technical too with a lot of the suspension stuff. But asphalt racing, as Ron says, man, you got to be right on.
Yeah.
You can be just messing up a little bit, as he says, with a shock or something can throw you way off. And when they go bad, it's even worse because you wonder what the heck's wrong with this thing. But
yeah, you're right there. Right? That's what happened to me a couple of times this year. I had 3 shocks that go bad on me, and here you're chasing the car, doing other adjustments, and here you got a valve or something bad in the shock.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you got to do. You always got to like keep up on your shocks in these cars for one thing.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. Anyway, back to you, Craig.
And 2024, how was your late model season and the number 60 at Delaware Speedway this past season?
Very enjoyable season, I gotta say. It was fun. The car was competitive all the time, ran good, ran up front, and it was fun racing. No real like no body work to do, like no real wrecks or anything like that. So I never had to worry about that. But it was just a fun year.
Excellent. And where did you finish in the points? Do you remember? I know you
5th.
5th. Oh, congratulations. That's good to be running up front there and
Yep.
get some solid finishes. Awesome. Did you get any wins?
Not this year. I didn't.
No.
Last year I got it. Last year I got a couple of heat races in the feature, and this year I was like second, third, right there, but just couldn't pull it off.
So you're coming back for the 2025 season, a late model, to make sure you get that elusive victory that you missed last year, right?
Yeah, got to try again.
Excellent. Well, while we're talking about 2025, what can we look forward to seeing out of Ronnie Beauchamp in the 2025 season?
Well, I'm not sure yet as far as the car or colors or anything like that, because I'm still kind of got to talk to my sponsors and stuff, and then but as far as the car, I think maybe just little things because the car was pretty good, so I just got to talk to Mike McCall and see if there's any more little fancy tricks that's out there for this year. We'll go from there.
There you go, Rob. Do you have
But
any
I got to thank the McCall boys, like the guys that got there. They're really good to me, so they keep me on all the latest and greatest stuff.
Well, you know what? While we're talking about it, it takes a pile to get these cars to the track and get them worked on in the shop. Do you got some sponsors that you want to thank?
Yeah, I got Guaranteed Comfort Heating and Cooling. They've been kind of the main sponsor for a few years, so I got to really thank them. Masterpiece Painting and Drywall. He's been sponsoring me since 2015. So those two right there have been kind of making it happen for the late model racing.
Awesome. And one question I always like to ask: if money was no object and you had all the time in the world, you could run anywhere and race anything at any track, any race. What would be the big race for you?
Oh, let me see. I've always wanted to get on like the big tracks like a Daytona or Talladega. So I'd have to maybe try like maybe a Craftsman truck or something like that if I had the unlimited money to get out there and try one of them. Because it's always been kind of my dream to get on Daytona. So that would be kind of something to try.
You can't even imagine that, eh? Like, I mean, you're coming to the green flag at Daytona, even if you're in a Craftsman truck or whatever the truck series. Like, can you imagine just coming to taking the green flag at Daytona?
That'd be quite. I got friends who ran it. And I've heard about it, but I hear how good it is.
Yeah. Well, maybe someday. You never know, right?
Yeah, you never know. But the late model stuff is definitely. I would, if I had the unlimited budget, I'd build a good late model car again and play around with that.
Awesome. And are you planning on
try other tracks? Never know.
Yeah, I was just gonna actually ask you. Actually, are you planning on sticking around Delaware for this season, or you think you're going to do some traveling?
No, I like just going Friday night at Delaware now. Trying not too much traveling anymore as far as that.
Yeah, for sure.
I just enjoy it. It's fun. It's just fun racing, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I enjoy going to I don't get up to Delaware much, but I do enjoy going up to see Delaware. Once in a while I get up there and go enjoy some late model racing, some super stock racing. Rob, do you have any other questions for our guest tonight, Ronnie Beauchamp?
Nope. Other than if you look at the APC series, for instance, and some of the tracks that they run at, to me it looks like a bit of a grind. I like that Friday night Delaware thing. That's for you with all the racing you've done. Like you don't have anything to prove to anybody anymore. You can, you've done all that. You've raced 37 years of racing. I was looking at I haven't seen one of your cars that didn't look bad. They always look great. Same as Lloyd Rawlings, all his cars, number 69 black. They've been like that for 30
They're always
years.
a pretty car.
Your cars always look great. And
Yeah.
again, you're a great driver. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. Just running down there on Friday night. You're my hero when I go down there. I know, as I said, you're a great driver. And the thing is, I say I like about you is you'll race people clean. But if there's a payback that's coming, that guy's going to get it, and that's how it should be.
Yep, exactly.
And I love to see your dad walking up there with his headset on. I know that there's some real good family time that you spend together with your dad, and he's right in there, giving you everything that you could possibly do to make that car faster. So you got a really good team there.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You're not too bad of a shoe yourself,
Yeah, well, maybe about 30 years ago, but
oh, I think you could still get in there and wheel a car.
Yeah, as long as I'm the only guy in the track. Anyway, thanks, Ron.
Well, Ronnie, I don't have any more questions for you. You've kind of walked us through, taking us down memory lane. Do you have anything else that you think we ought to know about you before we let you off the hook here?
I think you guys pretty much know everything. Other than, yeah, that's about it, I guess.
Oh, that's awesome. We really
can try and go racing again and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. We really appreciate you taking the time to join me and Rob here on Circle Track Chatter this evening, Monday evening, and we wish you the best of luck going forward 2025 season. And we hopefully we can get up there on Friday nights and check you out at Delaware Speedway.
Oh, cool! Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, and thanks again for joining us.
Well, thank you. Have a good night.
Yep, you too. Take care.
Okay, everybody.
Well, there you go, Rob. We know a little bit. Well, you already knew a lot about Ronnie Beauchamp, but I just learned a whole lot that I never knew beforehand. What do you think of that interview?
Well, as I said, he's got a ton of racing experience. Raced all over. He's won features. He's won championship there in '98. That's a tough thing to do. Like it's not easy racing in the Cask Car Series or the Canadian Tire NASCAR Canadian Tire Series. You really gotta. It takes a lot of money. Luckily, in Ron's case, his dad, Ron Senior, is an excellent engine builder. In fact, as he indicated, he builds a lot of engines for a lot of the other teams. So he's a really. I'm amazed sometimes at how much talent comes out of the Windsor area. He talked about his dad learning from Gary Custer. That was Ryan Custer's dad. I don't know if you know Ryan. He's a standout go-kart racer. Him and his the whole family are. But and then Gary Custer got together with Gary St. Dennis, and that's where Dart Cylinder Heads came from in Oldcastle. These guys are just really smart guys, and I'm glad that I was a part of that. I could watch all that. My shop that I had down there in Oldcastle was right around the corner from Alec Pinsonneau's race team, and I used to visit those shops, and right there, like on my lunch, I could go over there and see these places. I'm just glad I was from there too.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm glad we had an opportunity to get Ronnie Beauchamp on here because of course, I go to Delaware on Friday nights. I hear the name, but don't really know who the person is. Now I know who Ronnie Beauchamp is, and I'll make my way to the pits. Make my way to the pits the next time I go there and go say hi and do all the handshaking and everything. So that was a lot of fun. Do you have any other stories about Ronnie Beauchamp? Something that he may not have shared that you think we should know?
Nope. As I said, they're very serious racers, and like there's no shenanigans when it comes to those guys in the racing. It's first class. And I mean, they as I said, I used to drive by their shop that they had outside of McGregor, and see that big hauler and number 60 Mopar all over the side of it, and I was always if I could see that shop door was open, I'd come around that corner and I'd be peeking inside there to have a look, and darn near wreck my truck. But yeah, I'm just glad that I know those guys, and yeah, they worked for everything that they have. They've worked hard for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that's all very good. That's going to bring our show to a close. Make sure you join us next week. We're going to be joined by the driver of the number 31 Dirt Dog Media sponsored UMP Modified, Chase Smith. He's gonna join us. Just quickly on Chase Smith, what do you know about Chase Smith? Just very quickly, Rob Young.
Oh, I knew his dad, and from the old Fog go-kart track. They were go-kart racers, and then we know more as Chin, but races a modified at Buxton, and just one heck of a nice guy, and do anything for you.
Yep, absolutely. And longtime crew member for Drew Smith, driver number 86, UMP Modified at Buxton Speedway when he races. He didn't race a whole lot this year, but yeah, started it as a crew person, and now he's moving on to driver. So we're going to talk to him about all that next week. That'll be next week at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to Circle Track Chatter. My name is Craig Smolders, joined as always by Rob Young, Angela Young-Bonner, back in the production studio. We will see you next week, 7 p.m. live, presented by the Wilkins. Circle Track Chatter, thank you for joining us. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.